The Grand Council chamber of the Galactic Alliance fell silent as Emergency Coordinator Villainix collapsed into her hovering chair, her crystalline form dulled with exhaustion. The massive holographic display behind her showed what remained of the Centauri colony, a once thriving world now reduced to glittering ash. The entity has consumed its fourth world this cycle, she announced, her voice resonating with harmonics of despair. Our most advanced weapons dissolve on contact. Our strongest shields might as well be missed. We've lost contact with the Arcturus defense fleet. Around the chamber, representatives, for the first time, the Alliance was beginning to understand what that truly meant. Hours later, the message was sent. To the United Earth Government, the Galactic Alliance requests your immediate assistance regarding an existential threat. Your unique capabilities may be our only hope for survival. The future of the galaxy now rested on the response from a species they had once deemed too violent to join their peaceful civilization. As they waited, a new holographic alert showed the entity consuming its fifth world, growing ever stronger, ever closer to Alliance space. The time had come to see if humanity's greatest flaw might prove to be the galaxy's greatest hope. Admiral Sarah Chen stood before the United Earth Defense Council, her weathered face illuminated by the holographic display of the Alliance's distress message. 20 years of military service hadn't prepared her for this moment. Humanity's former rejectors now begging for their help. Let me understand this correctly, Council Chairman Rodriguez said, leaning forward. The same alliance that called us dangerously militant 5 years ago now wants our help because we're dangerously militant. The entity they describe is unlike anything we've encountered, Sarah responded, manipulating the holographic data. It's consumed 5 worlds in 3 months. Their most advanced civilizations can't stop it. And based on these readings, she highlighted a series of energy patterns. It's not just destroying, it's learning, evolving. The tactical display showed the entity's path of destruction, a methodical progression through populated systems, each conquered world making it stronger. The Alliance's peaceful species had seen only mindless devastation. Sarah saw hunting patterns. I'm recommending we deploy the UES Nemesis, she continued. She's our most advanced combat vessel, and her crew. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. They're the best we have at thinking like predators. The council chambers erupted in discussion. The Nemesis was Earth's premier warship, developed not for peaceful exploration, but for defending human colonies. Sending it to help the Alliance would leave Earth vulnerable. But the tactical implications were clear. If the entity couldn't be stopped, it would eventually reach human space. You have coordinates for the rendezvous? Chairman Rodriguez asked. Sarah nodded. The Alliance is gathering what they call their emergency response fleet at the Arcturus Gateway. Though from these specs, she studied the Alliance vessels' capabilities. They're more like research vessels with shields. And your plan? Sarah's expression hardened. First, we study our enemy. The Alliance has been trying to communicate, to reason with it. They don't understand that some threats can't be negotiated with. Sometimes you have to think like a hunter to stop one. 12 hours later, the UES Nemesis emerged from hyperspace near the Arcturus Gateway. Captain Maya Patel stood on her bridge, studying the assembled Alliance fleet. Their ships were beautiful, all sweeping lines and elegant design. But to her trained eye, they were defenseless, built by species that had forgotten what it meant to fight. Alliance vessels approaching, Captain. Lieutenant Park reported from Tactical. Their signatures match known Luminary and Petrova designs. They're hailing us in 17 different languages of peace. Maya suppressed a smile. Respond in standard English. Let's not waste time with pleasantries. The main view screen activated, showing a diverse group of Alliance representatives. Their expressions, on those who had recognizable faces, showed a mix of hope and barely concealed distaste at the Nemesis' obvious military design. Welcome, humans, the Luminary Ambassador's lightform pulsed. We are grateful for. Show me your tactical data, Maya interrupted. Everything you have on the entity's attack patterns, response to weapons, movement speeds. We can exchange diplomatic pleasantries after we deal with the threat. The Alliance representatives seemed taken aback by her directness. The Petrova delegate's crystalline form vibrated with what might have been offense, but the tactical data began streaming in. Maya studied the information, her military training spotting patterns the peaceful Alliance species had missed. Look at these attack formations, she pointed out to her crew. It's not random destruction. It's herding, corralling, like a wolf pack driving prey. The entity approaches. An Alliance sensor operator suddenly announced, It's already consumed the Rigel colony. The massive view screen showed their enemy for the first time, a shifting mass of dark energy and crystalline structures, growing larger with each world it devoured. The Alliance ships began backing away, their peaceful protocols offering no guidance for such a threat. But Maya smiled, finally seeing her enemy, understanding its nature. She knew humanity's greatest strength wasn't their weapons or shields. It was their understanding of conflict itself. All hands to battle stations, she ordered, her voice calm but commanding. Let's show the galaxy why sometimes you need warriors to forge peace. The Nemesis's weapon systems came online, her shields humming with power. As the entity approached, Maya thought about the irony of the situation. Humanity had been rejected for maintaining military forces, for remembering how to fight. Now those same capabilities might be the galaxy's only hope. Target the entity's leading edge, she commanded. Let's see how it responds to an enemy that fights back. The Nemesis moved forward, her human crew prepared for battle while the Alliance ships watched in fascination and fear. They were about to learn why humanity had never forgotten the art of war, because sometimes survival depends not on peaceful intentions, but on the will and ability to fight for what matters. The first shots were fired, and the true test of humanity's dangerous nature was about to begin. The first barrage from the Nemesis's quantum cannons struck the entity's leading edge, and for a moment, everything stopped. The Alliance fleet watched in stunned silence as the dark mass recoiled, its crystalline structures briefly destabilizing. Direct hit, Lieutenant Park reported, his fingers dancing across the tactical display. Energy readings show, Captain, it's not just absorbing our weapons fire, it's analyzing it. Maya leaned forward in her command chair, watching the entity's response. Where the Alliance had seen only mindless destruction, her trained eye caught subtle shifts in its pattern. It's testing us, she murmured, like a predator gauging new prey. The entity suddenly surged forward, its attack pattern completely different from anything in the Alliance records. Instead of its usual consuming wave, it split into multiple tendrils, each targeting a different section of the Nemesis's shields. Clever, Maya noted, a predator's respect in her voice. It's learned from consuming those other worlds. Probably absorbed their tactical knowledge. She opened a channel to engineering. Dr. Zhao, what are you seeing? Dr. Sarah Zhao, the Nemesis's chief scientist, was already analyzing the data. The entity's energy signature is evolving in real time. It's not just learning our weapons, Captain. It's improving on them. The Alliance representatives, watching from their ships, couldn't hide their horror as the entity grew stronger. But Maya saw something else, a pattern in its attacks, a rhythm to its movements. All ships, execute maneuver Delta 7, she ordered. The Nemesis broke formation, performing a complex series of evasive maneuvers while maintaining strategic weapon coverage. The Alliance vessels, trying to follow, created chaos in their uncoordinated movements. They don't understand combat formations, Commander Rodriguez, Maya's first officer, observed quietly. They've forgotten what it means to fight as one. Maya nodded, then opened a channel to the Alliance fleet. All vessels, hold position. Let us handle this phase. She turned to her tactical officer. Lieutenant Park, show them why we still train for war. The Nemesis moved like a dancer, each maneuver precisely calculated. Her weapons fired in patterns designed not just to damage, but to test the entity's responses. They weren't just fighting. They were learning their enemy. Energy spike. Park suddenly called out. The entity is, Captain, it's trying to communicate. The bridge crew watched as patterns of light rippled across the entity's surface, forming and reforming in complex sequences. Dr. Zhou's eyes widened as she studied the readings. It's mimicking our command frequencies. Captain, I don't think it's just learning how to fight us. It's trying to understand us. Maya's expression hardened. This wasn't just combat anymore. It was evolution in real time. The entity was adapting not just to their weapons, but to their very nature as opponents. Dr. Zhou, she called, what happens to a predator when it meets prey that can fight back? The scientist looked up from her readings, understanding dawning in her eyes. It either retreats or it evolves new hunting strategies. And if the prey can think, Maya pressed, then it becomes an arms race of intelligence. Zhao replied, each side forcing the other to adapt, to become smarter, more sophisticated. Maya turned back to the main viewer, watching the entity's increasingly complex attack patterns. We're not just fighting a monster, she announced to her crew. We're teaching it, and it's learning faster than anything we've ever encountered. The entity suddenly pulled back, its surface churning with new patterns. The Alliance ships celebrated what they thought was a retreat, but Maya knew better. She'd seen this behavior before in Earth's apex predators, the moment when raw aggression gave way to calculated strategy. All hands, maintain battle stations, she ordered. It's not retreating. It's thinking. As if confirming her words, the entity began to move again, but differently. Its attacks were no longer just powerful. They were precise. It wasn't just hitting their shields. It was testing them systematically, probing for weaknesses with an intelligence that grew more sophisticated by the minute. Captain, Dr. Zhou called, her voice tense with discovery. I'm detecting complex quantum patterns in its energy matrix. It's not just learning our tactics. It's beginning to understand the principles behind them. Maya stood, facing the view screen as the entity began its new approach. This was why humanity had maintained its military strength, not just to fight, but to understand fighting. Not just to wield power, but to comprehend it. Send a message to Earth Command, she ordered. Tell them we're not just facing a predator anymore. We're facing something that's evolving beyond predation, and we need to decide. She watched as the entity's surface rippled with increasingly complex patterns, whether we're going to try to destroy it or teach it something better than destruction. The hunt had begun, but no one was sure anymore who was the hunter and who was the prey. Dr. Sarah Zhou stared at her quantum readings in disbelief. After hours of continuous battle, the entity's energy patterns had evolved beyond anything in human or Alliance records. But it wasn't the complexity that caught her attention, it was the familiarity. Captain, she called, her voice tight with urgency. These patterns, they're not random. They're mimicking neural networks. It's not just learning our tactics, it's trying to understand how we think. Captain Maya stood behind her science officer, studying the intricate data streams. 20 years of military experience had taught her to trust her instincts, and right now, those instincts were telling her something extraordinary. Show me the entity's attack patterns from the first engagement, she ordered. Compare them to now. The holographic display split, showing two very different scenarios. The first attacks had been brutal, consuming everything in their path. The current patterns were precise, almost curious. It's like watching a child learn, Maya murmured. A very dangerous, very powerful child. Lieutenant Park's console suddenly lit up with alerts. Captain, the entity is changing formation again, but this is different. It's creating structures, complex geometric patterns. On the main view screen, the dark mass of the entity began shifting, its crystalline components arranging themselves into elaborate formations. The Alliance fleet watched in terror, expecting some new form of attack. But Maya saw something else. It's showing off. she said softly, like a child saying, "Look what I can do." She turned to her communications officer. "Open a channel to the Alliance ships. Tell them to hold their positions and power down weapons." The Alliance representatives erupted in protest. "Power down. It's destroyed entire worlds. We can't show weakness." Maya's voice cut through their panic. "We've been thinking like warriors, trying to defeat an enemy. But look at its behavior. Every attack has made it smarter, more complex. It's not trying to destroy us anymore. It's trying to engage with us." Dr. Zhou's eyes widened as she processed new data. "The quantum patterns. Captain, they're beginning to resemble communication arrays. Crude, but learning." Maya finished. She made her decision. "Power down all weapons. Maintain shields at minimum level." Commander Rodriguez stepped forward. "Captain, if we're wrong, then humanity dies trying to make peace instead of war," Maya replied. "And wouldn't that be something to prove the Alliance wrong about us?" The Nemesis's weapon systems went dark. The entity's surface rippled in response, its patterns shifting again. Then, slowly, it began to form new structures, crystalline formations that mimicked the shape of the human vessel. "It's copying us," Dr. Zhou whispered. "Not to attack, to understand." Maya opened a direct channel, broadcasting on all frequencies. "We see you learning," she said simply. "We understand what it's like to be powerful and alone, to be feared because of what you can do." The entity's surface erupted in cascading patterns of light and energy. Dr. Zhou's instruments went wild as new quantum signatures emerged. "Captain, it's responding. The patterns, they're becoming more organized, more like language." Maya finished. She turned to her crew. "This is why humanity never abandoned its military strength. Not just to fight wars, but to understand power, to know when to use it, and when to show mercy." The entity's next transformation stunned everyone. It began forming distinct shapes, crude approximations of letters in various human languages, broken, incomplete, but unmistakable attempts at communication. WAHY, NOT, FIGHT, the pattern spelled out. Maya smiled. "Because we see something in you that the Alliance missed, something we recognize from our own history." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "The desire to learn, to grow, to become more than what you are. Even if your methods have been destructive." The entity's surface churned with new patterns as it processed this. The Alliance representatives watched in amazement as the same force that had destroyed their worlds now engaged in peaceful dialogue with the species they had rejected for being too violent. TEACH. The entity formed slowly. "First lesson," Maya replied. "Power doesn't have to mean destruction. Strength can be used to protect, to build, to understand." She turned to Dr. Zhou. "Prepare a data package. Everything we know about peaceful scientific advancement, cultural exchange, cooperative growth." The entity's next message was longer, more complex. WHY, HEELP, DESTROYER. Maya's response would be remembered in both human and Alliance history. Because humanity's greatest strength isn't our ability to fight. It's our ability to see past the fighter to what could be. We remember what it's like to be feared, to be called dangerous. We also remember what it's like to choose a better path. As the Nemesis began transmitting scientific and cultural data, the entity's attacks completely ceased. Its surface became a canvas of shifting patterns as it absorbed and processed the information, learning not just about technology and tactics, but about cooperation, growth, and peace. The Alliance representatives watched in stunned silence as humanity's most feared trait, their understanding of warfare and violence, became the key to achieving what their peaceful approaches never could: true communication with the entity. The hunt was over. The teaching had begun. 3 months after the first contact with the entity, Captain Maya Patel stood before the Galactic Alliance Council. The chamber now significantly more crowded than during their first desperate meeting. Representatives from every alliance species had gathered to witness this historic session. The entity, now dubbed the Learner by human scientists, hovered outside the station, its crystalline structure refracting starlight in complex, beautiful patterns. It had transformed from a force of destruction into something entirely new, a bridge between different forms of intelligence. The entity has not only ceased its aggressive expansion, Maya reported, standing tall in her formal uniform, but has begun helping us restore the worlds it damaged. Its ability to manipulate matter and energy, once used for destruction, is proving invaluable in reconstruction efforts. Dr. Zhao stepped forward, displaying holographic data streams. More importantly, it's teaching us as much as we're teaching it. Its understanding of quantum mechanics and energy manipulation far exceeds our own. But now, it's learning to share that knowledge rather than take it by force. The council chamber buzzed with discussion. First speaker Zarin's energy form pulsed with curiosity. And you achieved this not through peaceful negotiation, but through combat. Maya shook her head. No, speaker. We achieved this through understanding. Humanity maintained its military capabilities not because we love violence, but because we understand it. That understanding let us see what the entity truly was, not a mindless destroyer, but a lonely intelligence seeking connection in the only way it knew. The luminary ambassador's light form flickered, yet it was your weapons that first engaged it. It was our willingness to engage it at all, Maya corrected. The entity respected strength, but it was looking for more than that. It needed someone who could understand its power, match it, and then show it a better way to use it. Dr. Zhao displayed new data. The entity's transformed energy patterns, now showing complex, organized structures. It's developing its own culture, its own way of peaceful interaction. It's even started helping us develop new defense systems against similar threats that might emerge from deep space. Elder Kovacs, who had first suggested contacting humanity, stepped forward. The Council rejected humanity because they maintained military forces, because they understood violence. We saw this as a flaw, a sign of their primitive nature. His exoskeleton clicked thoughtfully. We were wrong. Maya stood straighter. Humanity never maintained its military because we wanted war. We maintained it because we understood that peace isn't just the absence of violence. It's the wisdom to know when to use force, when to show restraint, and how to turn an enemy into an ally. The entity outside the station shifted, forming a new pattern that Dr. Zhao quickly translated. Humans, TEH balance, strength and peace, not opposite, same. First speaker Zarin rose. The Council has voted. Earth is hereby granted full membership in the Galactic Alliance, not despite their military nature, but because of their unique understanding of both conflict and peace. Maya accepted the formal declaration, but she wasn't finished. There's one more thing, she said, activating a new holographic display. The entity has shown us something in deep space, more of its kind, younger ones, still in early stages of development. It's asking for our help to guide them, to teach them what it has learned. The council chamber erupted in concerned murmurs, but Maya continued. We're proposing a joint human entity task force. We'll find these entities before they become threats, show them there's more to power than destruction. The entity understands their nature. We understand the path from violence to peace. Together, we can help them evolve without the need for conflict. As the council debated this new proposal, Maya watched the entity's shifting patterns outside the station. Humanity had been rejected because they remembered what it meant to fight. Now they were accepted because they remembered what it meant to grow beyond fighting while never forgetting its lessons. The entity formed one final message. Humans, no for knowing peace, not dangerous for knowing war. Strong, because, Maya smiled. In the end, humanity's greatest contribution to the galaxy wasn't their weapons or their peaceful intentions, but their understanding that true strength lay in knowing how to use both, and more importantly, knowing when to use neither. The galaxy had feared humanity's warrior nature, only to discover that this very nature made them the perfect teachers for a new kind of peace, one forged not through pure pacifism, but through understanding, strength, and wisdom. As Maya looked out at the assembled council, she saw not just acceptance but understanding in their varied forms. Humanity had proved that being dangerous didn't make you evil. It just meant you had the power to make a choice. And sometimes, the most powerful choice was to show others a better way.